Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
I used to think the worst thing that could happen to a man was discovering his wife had been faking orgasms for 20 years. Turns out, I was thinking too small. The truth hit me on a Tuesday, because of course it did. Tuesdays are when the universe dumps its garbage on people like me. I'm Nate Warren, 44 years old, middle management at a logistics company, owner of a dad bod that my wife Marla stopped pretending to appreciate around our 15th anniversary. I drive a sensible Honda, drink cheap beer, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought my biggest problem was the HOA sending passive-aggressive letters about my mailbox being the wrong shade of beige. I was wrong about everything. It started with a text message that wasn't meant for me. Marla's best friend Candy, yes, with an I, because she's that kind of person, sent it to my phone instead of Marla's. Hope she finally gets what she wants tonight. That hotel looks amazing. I stared at that message for a full minute, sitting in my car outside our suburban cookie-cutter house. The kind of house that screams, successful middle-class family, to the neighbors, while quietly rotting from the inside. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and apparently, 1 cheating wife. My hands didn't shake. That's what surprised me most. I'd always imagined that if I discovered infidelity, I'd be a wreck. Crying, screaming, punching walls like they do in movies. Instead, I felt cold. Calculating. Like someone had flipped a switch in my brain from devoted husband to logistics manager with a problem to solve. I forwarded the text back to Candy with a simple reply. Wrong number, but thanks for the heads up. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally. Oh my God, Nate, I'm so sorry. It's not what you think. I blocked her number and went inside. Marla was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine. She looked good. She always looked good. 41 years old, advertising executive. The kind of woman who wore power suits and intimidated junior employees. Her dark hair was pulled back in that severe bun she favored for work, though she'd loosened it slightly. She smiled when she saw me, and I wondered how many times that smile had been a lie. Hey, honey, she said, her voice warm. How was your day? Same old logistics nightmares, I replied, keeping my tone light. You know, making sure trucks go from point A to point B without the universe collapsing. The usual. She laughed, that practice laugh she used at cocktail parties. My hero, keeping America's supply chain running. There was a time when that laugh made me feel valued. Now it sounded hollow. How about you? I asked, opening the refrigerator and grabbing a beer. Any exciting campaigns? Oh, the usual corporate nonsense. Though I might have to travel next week. There's a conference in Chicago that could be good for networking. Chicago? Right, I made a mental note. Sounds important, I said. It could be career-changing, she replied, and something in her voice made me look up. Her eyes were bright, excited in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in years. I've been working with this new creative director, Trent Olson. He's got connections that could really open doors for me. Trent. Of course his name was Trent. Probably drove a sports car and used hair gel. That's great, Marla. Really great. She studied me for a moment, and I wondered if she could see through my mask. But then our daughter Chloe thundered down the stairs, 17 years old and perpetually annoyed at the universe. And the moment passed. I need money for the movies, Chloe announced, not asking, just stating a fact. What happened to your allowance? Marla asked. Spent it. On what? Stuff. God. Why do you always interrogate me? I pulled out my wallet and handed Chloe a 20. She took it without thanks and disappeared back upstairs. Our son Tim was away at college, probably having the time of his life not being home. Smart kid. That night I lay in bed next to Marla, listening to her breathe. She fell asleep quickly. She always did. No guilty conscience keeping her awake. I stared at the ceiling and planned my next move. The thing about logistics is that it's all about information. You need to know where everything is, where it's going, and what obstacles might get in the way. Marriage, I was realizing, wasn't that different. The next morning, I called in sick to work, something I never did. Then I called my best friend Big Ed, an ex-cop who now ran a bail bonds business and owed me several favors. I need help with something, I told him over coffee at a diner far from my neighborhood. Ed was 60 pounds overweight, balding, and had the kind of face that had seen too much of humanity's worst. He was also the most loyal person I knew. You're finally leaving her, he said. Not a question. You knew. Nate, everyone knows. Well, everyone except you, apparently. He sighed. I saw her 6 months ago at that new bar downtown. The one with the stupid name, Liquid Courage or some crap. She was with some guy, young, flashy, driving a red Porsche. They were all over each other. The coffee in my mouth turned bitter. 6 months? I didn't know how to tell you, man. You seemed happy, or at least you seemed like you were trying to be happy. I figured maybe it was a one-time thing. Maybe she'd come to her senses. He leaned forward. But if you're ready to do something about it now, I'm in. What do you need? Information first, then we'll see about justice. Ed grinned. It wasn't a nice grin. Now you're talking my language. The Candlelight Inn was exactly the kind of place where affairs happened. Not seedy enough to be obviously shameful, but not nice enough to be memorable. Perfect anonymity wrapped in mediocre thread counts and complimentary continental breakfast. I found the receipt in Marla's car. She'd gotten sloppy, or maybe she wanted to be caught. Red lipstick stained the edge. Marla never wore red lipstick. She said it made her look too aggressive for client meetings. Apparently, she made exceptions for Trent. Ed and I sat in his truck across the street from the bar where he'd seen them before. It was Thursday night, and according to Marla, she had a late meeting with the creative team. I'd smiled and told her not to work too hard. There, Ed said, pointing. The red Porsche pulled into the parking lot like a peacock announcing its presence. Trent Olson stepped out, 38 maybe, with professionally styled hair and a suit that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He was exactly the kind of guy I'd expected, handsome in that generic way that comes from expensive grooming and gym memberships. 10 minutes later, Marla's BMW pulled up beside him. I watched through Ed's binoculars as my wife of 22 years stepped out of her car and into Trent's arms. They kissed. Not a friendly peck, but the kind of kiss that made my stomach turn. His hands moved down her back, grabbing her in ways I hadn't been allowed to touch her in years. You okay? Ed asked quietly. I'm fine, I lied. They went inside the bar together, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. Through the window, I could see them take a booth in the back corner. Intimate. Practiced. This wasn't their first time. I'm going in, I said. That's a bad idea. I'm not confronting them. I just want to get closer, hear what they're saying. Ed sighed, but didn't stop me. He knew better. I entered through the back entrance, near the bathrooms, and found a spot at the bar with a clear view of their booth. The bartender, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, gave me a sympathetic look that suggested she'd seen this scenario play out before. Whiskey, I told her. The cheap stuff. Marla and Trent were laughing about something. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see her face, animated, alive in a way she never was at home. She touched his arm, leaned in close, whispered something that made him grin. Then I heard it, Marla's voice, louder now, emboldened by alcohol. God, I can't wait to be done with all the suburban housewife crap. The HOA meetings, the bake sales, pretending to care about Chloe's drama. What about Nate? Trent asked, and my whole body tensed. Marla laughed, actually laughed. Nate? He's like a golden retriever. Loyal, predictable, completely oblivious. He'll never see it coming. You sure about the prenup thing? The disappearance clause? Absolutely. My lawyer confirmed it. If he abandons the family, and with the right evidence, we can make it look like he did, I keep everything. The house, the accounts, his pension. He gets nothing. My hand tightened around the whiskey glass. Trent leaned back, cocky. And then we can finally upgrade, Marla finished, to a real life. Not this middle-class mediocrity. They kissed again, and I forced myself to look away. The bartender refilled my glass without asking. "On the house," she said quietly. I left $20 on the bar and walked out. In the truck, Ed took one look at my face and started the engine. "Where to?" "Home. I need to think." "You need to get angry." "Oh, I'm angry, Ed. I'm just saving it for later." That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a motel, not the Candlelight Inn, somewhere cheaper, and sat on the scratchy bedspread with my laptop. The disappearance clause in our prenup was something Marla's father had insisted on 22 years ago. He hadn't trusted me, thought I was marrying up, and would eventually run off with a younger woman. The clause stated that if either party abandoned the marriage without cause, they forfeited all marital assets. It was designed to protect Marla. Now she was planning to weaponize it against me. I pulled up our bank accounts, our property records, everything I could access legally. Then I made a list, not of what I wanted to save, but of what I wanted to destroy. Logistics, remember? It's all about moving pieces from point A to point B. I just needed to make sure Marla and Trent ended up at point Z. The next 2 weeks were the performance of my life. I smiled at Marla over breakfast. I asked about her day. I even initiated sex once. She seemed surprised but went along with it, though I could tell her mind was elsewhere, probably with Trent and his Porsche. Meanwhile, I was systematically dismantling our life. First, I visited a lawyer, not our family lawyer, but someone Ed recommended. A shark in a cheap suit named Mike Patterson, who specialized in complex marital asset protection. The disappearance clause cuts both ways, Mike explained, leaning back in his chair. If you can prove she's planning to fraudulently trigger it, you can void the entire prenup, but you need evidence. Real evidence. I showed him everything. Photos of Marla and Trent, the recordings from the bar. I'd gone back with a digital recorder, perfectly legal in our state, and the text messages I'd recovered from Marla's old phone that she thought she'd erased. Mike whistled. "This is good. This is really good. But if you want to really protect yourself, you need to act first." "What do you mean?" "You need to disappear before she can make you disappear, legally speaking." That's when he explained the plan. Over the next 10 days, I quietly liquidated everything I could. Our joint savings went into a trust for Tim and Chloe, irrevocable, untouchable by either parent. I sold my coin collection, my tools, everything of value that was solely mine. I transferred it all into accounts Marla didn't know existed. Then came the big move. Our house was in my name, a fact Marla had always resented. Her father hadn't trusted her with property ownership after she defaulted on a condo in her 20s. I'd bought the house before we married, and the prenup specified it remained mine unless I abandoned the family. I sold it. Cash sale to an investment company that Ed had connections with. They needed a rental property. I needed quick money and immediate occupancy for the new owners. We closed in 72 hours. The timing had to be perfect. Marla was going to her conference in Chicago, the one where I knew she'd actually be shacking up with Trent at some luxury hotel. I had 3 days. I rented a U-Haul on a Wednesday morning, called in sick to work again. My boss was starting to ask questions, but I didn't care. This was more important. Big Ed showed up with 2 of his bail bondsman buddies, guys who were used to moving quickly and not asking questions. We emptied the house in 6 hours. Everything that was mine, everything I'd bought, everything that mattered, gone. I left the furniture Marla had picked out, the decorations she'd insisted on, all the stuff that screamed, her taste, not mine. In the kitchen, I left a single item, a manila envelope. Inside were printed copies of every photo, every recording, every piece of evidence of her affair. Also included the deed showing the house sale, a notarized letter explaining that I was protecting my assets from fraudulent seizure, and a copy of the trust documents showing that Tim and Chloe's college funds and inheritance were secured. And one more thing, a Polaroid photo I'd taken 2 nights ago. Marla and Trent, through the window of the Candlelight Inn, in a position that left no doubt about their relationship. On the back, I wrote, "Hope you like open concept. I left you a little something on the kitchen island. The new owners, a nice couple from Minnesota relocating for work, Moved in Thursday afternoon. I handed them the keys, wished them well, and drove away in my packed Honda. I didn't look back. Marla called me 67 times that Friday. I know because I counted while sitting in my new apartment, a studio in a building 40 minutes away, rented under an LLC Mike had set up for me. I didn't answer. The voicemail started angry. What the hell did you do? Call me back right now. Then confused. Nate, please, we need to talk about this. This is insane. Then desperate. Please pick up. I'm sorry. We can work this out. Then threatening, my lawyer's going to destroy you. You abandoned us. The prenup. I deleted them all. Instead, I focused on phase 2 of my plan. Trent. The thing about flashy guys with expensive cars is that they're easy to track. Trent posted his entire life on social media, where he ate.
Second Instagram, 47 posts, all of her. You built her a shrine. You posted her on my birthday.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Where he worked out, where he parked his precious Porsche. On Saturday morning, I found it in the parking lot of his luxury apartment complex. Security cameras everywhere, but I'd planned for that. I wore a delivery uniform Ed had procured, FedEx, complete with a fake package, and walked right past the guard with a wave. The Porsche sat in its designated spot, gleaming red in the morning sun. I didn't key it. I didn't slash the tires. That would be vandalism, and I'm not a criminal. Instead, I used expanding foam, the kind used for insulation. I filled the exhaust pipe completely, then placed a custom-made sticker on the windshield. Cheaters park here in bright yellow letters, impossible to remove without damaging the paint. Then I called Ed, who called his buddy at the local news station, who happened to be in the neighborhood with a camera when Trent came out and discovered his car. The video went viral by Sunday afternoon. Trent's meltdown screaming, trying to rip off the sticker, calling the police while neighbors filmed him, hit 50,000 views in 6 hours. Someone recognized him from his company's website and tagged his employer. By Monday morning, Trent's firm had placed him on administrative leave pending investigation into conduct unbecoming. I watched the video 12 times, drinking cheap beer and smiling, but I wasn't done. Marla tried a different approach on Monday. She showed up at my office. I'd gone back to work, acting like nothing had happened. My boss, a decent guy named Steve, had pulled me aside that morning. Everything okay, Nate? You've been different lately. Just some personal stuff, Steve. It's handled. Then Marla walked into the lobby, and Steve's eyes went wide. She looked terrible. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared like she'd been crying. The power suit was wrinkled. This wasn't the composed advertising executive I'd married. This was someone losing control. Nate, she shouted across the lobby, we need to talk. Every head in the office turned. I walked over calmly, keeping my voice low. This isn't the place, Marla. You sold our house. You stole our money. I protected assets from fraudulent seizure, I said quietly. And I have evidence of why that was necessary. Do you really want to have this conversation here? Her face went pale. You wouldn't. Try me. Security was approaching. Steve had signaled them. Marla saw them and her expression shifted from desperate to calculating. This isn't over, she hissed. No, I agreed. It's not. She left, but not before causing enough of a scene that the office gossip mill ran for days. I didn't confirm or deny anything. I just smiled sadly when people asked if I was okay and said, marriage is complicated. The real confrontation came that Wednesday. I'd agreed to meet Marla and her lawyer at a neutral location, a conference room at Mike Patterson's office. She brought Candy for moral support, which was her first mistake. Candy couldn't keep her mouth shut to save her life. Marla's lawyer was a shark named Jennifer Caldwell, all business and cold eyes. She laid out Marla's position. I had abandoned the family, triggered the prenup clause, and owed Marla everything. Mike smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. My client didn't abandon anyone, he said, sliding a folder across the table. My client protected himself from a conspiracy to defraud him of his assets using a prenup clause that your client planned to trigger fraudulently. We have evidence of the affair, evidence of the planning, and evidence that Mrs. Warren intended to falsely claim abandonment while continuing her relationship with Mr. Trent Olson. Jennifer opened the folder. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten. Marla grabbed the folder. As she looked through the photos, the transcripts, the recordings, her face went from pale to red. "You recorded me?" she whispered. "In a public place, which is completely legal in this state," Mike said cheerfully. "We also have testimony from multiple witnesses who saw you and Mr. Olson together on numerous occasions. This is entrapment. This is evidence. There's a difference." Candy, who'd been reading over Marla's shoulder, suddenly looked sick. "Oh my God, Marla. They have everything. Even the texts about—" "Shut up, Candy." But it was too late. Jennifer held up a hand. "I need to consult with my client privately." We left them in the conference room. In Mike's office, I finally let myself breathe. "That went well," Mike said. "What happens now?" "Now? They'll try to negotiate. They have no leverage, but they'll try. My guess is they'll offer to walk away quietly if you don't pursue damages." "What if I want to pursue damages?" Mike raised an eyebrow. "You want to go to court? It'll be expensive, messy, and public." I thought about Marla's face when she saw the evidence. I thought about Trent's viral meltdown. I thought about 22 years of being called a golden retriever. "Let's see what they offer first," I said. The offer came 2 days later. Marla would agree to a no-fault divorce, split custody of Chloe. Tim was old enough to choose, and he'd already told me he was team dad, and walk away from any claim to my assets or pension. In exchange, I wouldn't pursue damages and would keep the evidence private. It was a good offer. A reasonable offer. I turned it down. "I want more," I told Mike. "What more is there?" "I want her to lose everything she cares about. Her reputation, her career, her social standing. I want everyone to know what she did." Mike leaned back in his chair. "That's not legal revenge, Nate. That's scorched earth. Can we do it legally?" "Legally, yes. Ethically?" He shrugged. "That's between you and your conscience." My conscience had left the building around the time I watched my wife mock me in a bar. The plan was simple. I would accept Marla's offer with one addition. As part of the settlement, she would have to sign an affidavit admitting to the affair and the fraudulent prenup scheme. The affidavit would be sealed unless she violated the terms of the divorce. She agreed. She had no choice. But I never said I wouldn't use the evidence I already had. The first domino fell at Marla's office. Someone, definitely not me, probably someone Ed knew, sent an anonymous email to her boss and HR department. The email contained proof that Marla had been using company resources for personal travel, falsifying expense reports to cover trips with Trent, and conducting her affair during work hours. Corporate doesn't care about infidelity, but they care about expense fraud. Marla was fired within a week. The second domino was social. Candy, bless her gossipy heart, couldn't keep a secret. Within days, everyone in Marla's social circle knew about the affair, the prenup scheme, and her firing. The HOA president, a judgmental woman named Barbara who'd always looked down on me, suddenly became my biggest supporter. I always knew there was something off about Marla, Barbara told me at the mailbox one day, conveniently forgetting the years of passive-aggressive comments about my lawn care. The third domino was Trent. His administrative leave became permanent termination when his firm discovered he'd been having affairs with multiple clients, creating liability issues. The Porsche got repossessed. Turns out it was leased, and he couldn't make payments without his job. I heard through Ed's network that Trent tried to confront me. He showed up at my old house, not realizing I didn't live there anymore. The new owners called the police. He got arrested for trespassing and disturbing the peace. The viral video of that arrest got even more views than the first one, but the final domino, that was the one I'd been saving. Marla moved into a small condo across town. Trent, desperate and broke, moved in with her. I knew because Chloe told me. She'd chosen to live with me, saying she couldn't stand Mom's drama anymore. "She cries all the time," Chloe said one night over pizza, and Trent just sits there playing video games. "It's pathetic." "I'm sorry you have to see that," I told her. "I'm not. I'm glad I know the truth." She looked at me seriously, more adult than her 17 years. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? About the cheating?" Because you deserve to figure out who your mother really is on your own terms. She nodded, satisfied with that answer. Tim called from college that same week. Dad, I heard what happened. All of it. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, son. Just be better than me. Don't ignore the signs. I won't. And Dad, I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. That phone call meant more than any revenge ever could. But I still had one more move to make. I'd been planning it for weeks, waiting for the right moment. That moment came when I received a threatening letter from Trent. He'd apparently grown some courage or stupidity and decided to blame me for his life falling apart. The letter promised consequences if I didn't make things right financially. It was essentially extortion, and it was exactly what I needed. I called Mike. It's time for the finale. You sure about this? Absolutely. Mike set it up as a final negotiation meeting at Marla's condo. He told her and Trent that I was willing to offer a financial settlement to make everyone whole. They jumped at it, desperate and broke. What they didn't know was that Mike had also invited several key people. Jennifer Caldwell, Marla's former lawyer, now distancing herself from the case. Barbara from the HOA, two of Marla's former coworkers, and a process server with a court order. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday evening. Storm clouds had been building all day, and by 6 p.m., thunder was rolling across the sky. I arrived first with Mike and Ed. We set up a laptop connected to a projector. The condo was small, cramped, nothing like our old house. Marla had tried to make it look nice, but the cheap furniture and bare walls told the real story. Marla and Trent arrived together. She looked tired, older somehow. He looked angry, coiled tight like a spring ready to snap. "Where's the settlement offer?" Marla demanded. "Patience," Mike said. Then the others arrived. Marla's face went white when she saw Barbara and her former coworkers. "What is this?" she asked. "This," I said, standing up, "is accountability." I pressed play on the laptop. The screen filled with images, videos, recordings, everything I'd collected, everything I'd held back. Marla and Trent at the bar, their text messages planning my disappearance. Marla's expense reports showing fraudulent charges. Trent's threatening letter to me. "This is illegal," Trent shouted, jumping to his feet. "Actually, it's not," Mike said calmly. "Everything here was obtained legally. Public recordings, subpoenaed documents, freely given evidence. And now it's being presented to witnesses as part of a legal proceeding." The process server stepped forward and handed Trent an envelope. "You've been served. Civil suit for extortion and harassment." Trent's face went purple. "You son of a—" He lunged at me. I didn't move. Ed did. 300 pounds of ex-cop stepped between us, and Trent bounced off him like a tennis ball hitting a wall. "Don't," Ed said quietly. "You're already in enough trouble." Barbara stood up, clutching her purse. "I've seen enough. Marla, you're being removed from the HOA board, effective immediately. We don't associate with criminals." "I'm not a criminal," Marla shrieked. "You committed expense fraud," one of her former coworkers said coldly. "The company is considering pressing charges." The storm outside reached its peak. Thunder shook the windows and lightning lit up the room in harsh white flashes. Marla turned to me, mascara running down her face. "Why are you doing this? Haven't you hurt me enough?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. No love, no hate, just emptiness. "You called me a golden retriever," I said quietly. "Loyal, predictable, oblivious. You said I'd never see it coming. Nate, I didn't mean—" "You planned to take everything from me. My house, my money, my dignity. You were going to make me disappear so you could upgrade to a better life." I stepped closer. "So I decided to teach you something about logistics, about moving pieces from point A to point B." "What are you talking about?" "You're at point Z, Marla. Rock bottom. No job, no money, no reputation, no friends. Just you and Trent and the consequences of your choices." Trent tried to push past Ed again. "I'll kill you." Mike held up his phone. "And that's recorded too. Keep going, please. The restraining order will be easier to get." The fight went out of Trent. He slumped against the wall, defeated. Marla sank onto her cheap couch, sobbing. I picked up my jacket. "The divorce papers will be finalized next week. You'll get nothing except the right to walk away. If you violate any terms, If you contact me or my children except through lawyers, if you breathe wrong, all of this evidence goes public, not just to your friends and former employers, but online, everywhere, forever. You wouldn't, she whispered. Try me. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and Marla? That hotel you were planning to take Trent to next week? The Riverside Resort? I called them, told them about the expense fraud. They've flagged your credit card. You're banned. Her face went from white to red. How did you? Logistics, I said. It's what I do. Lightning cracked directly overhead, so bright and loud it felt like the sky was splitting open. In that flash of light, I saw everything clearly. Marla broken on the couch, Trent slumped against the wall, the witnesses staring in shock, Ed grinning beside me. I'd won. Completely, totally, devastatingly won. Some people chase storms, I said, opening the door to the rain. I just learned how to be one. I walked out into the thunder and lightning, Ed following behind me, leaving the wreckage of my old life behind. In my pocket, my phone buzzed, a text from Tim. Heard it went well. Proud of you, Dad. Another from Chloe. Mom's crying on the phone. Good. She deserves it. I stood in the rain for a moment, letting it wash over me, feeling lighter than I had in years. Then I got in my Honda and drove home to my studio apartment, my cheap beer, and my new life. The life where I was nobody's golden retriever. The life where I was free,